The future of the movement lies in what happens in Asia. So we lend our voice to communities. We cannot operate independently anymore.
Greenpeace should keep making radical the mainstream.
All right, let's just do it.
That's how Gypsy was established.
Should Southeast Asia go nuclear? There is a better way to go.
The target wasn't happy, obviously.
Basic principle is the polluter should pay.
Never underestimate our power to make change.
Since then, the community keep fighting.
It's a surprise that it would get this big. Do you know?
Yeah.
Hi.
Hello, Athena.
Fun!
Thank you very much, everybody, for calling in. 2020 is Greenpeace Southeast Asia's 20th year, and I'd like to welcome you all formally into this conversation. Maybe we just do a very quick round of introductions.
How long is the introduction?
Just quick one.
30 minutes.
I'm Ateng. I'm probably, together with Vaughn and Mark, one of the vanguards of Gypsy. We have been there since the very beginning, even before registration. So I now am here in Rockville in Maryland. I work for a foundation called the Growell Family Fund. It's Eileen Rockefeller and her family's philanthropy and 100% focus on climate change.
Hi, I'm Abby. I joined Gypsy in 2005. First days were, it was quite interesting because we set up everything from scratch. I now work freelance as a writer. I write for C4's Forest News blog and also sometimes to China Dialogue.
My name is Yaya. I started as a climate and energy campaigner. We started actually the climate and energy campaign in Indonesia at that time. My latest position within Gypsy was country representative for Indonesia. Now I am the executive director of WALHI. We still work together with Greenpeace and ex-Greenpeacers as well.
Hi, good to see everyone after a long period of time. I'm Vaughn Hernandez. I'm currently the global coordinator of Breakthrough from Plastic.
I recruited Vaughn. Do you know that?
Since 1995. My last assignment in Greenpeace was as development director for Greenpeace International. Prior to that, as executive director of the Southeast Asian.
The Rainbow Warrior first came to the Philippines and came to Southeast Asia 10 years ago. And actually that led to the eventual opening of and establishment of Greenpeace Southeast Asia.
Hello, kamusta? Pakabar? Badikap? Mark Lia here. So I actually started before the office was set up. I volunteered for the ships before, starting with the MV Greenpeace, the Black Pig. It's now retired. It's my favorite ship. And they finally recruited me to become an action coordinator at the start. I said, I'll stay for 1 year. I wound up staying 15. So I now work for World Animal Protection as the global program director. There's a few ex-Greenpeacers in the organization. I think we're everywhere.
This is my nation's tuna capital. For the last 20 years, I've been campaigning for our oceans.
You'll probably not see these types of big tuna in the next couple of years.
Hi, everyone. So actually, it's quite interesting because if you look at my milestones in Greenpeace, 3 of them are here. Mark was the one who introduced me as a volunteer. And then Ateng hired me. And so I only started as staff in 2004. So this is almost a decade later than Ateng. Still I'm in Greenpeace, of course, as program director. I think I'm turning 16 years this year.
You look older than us with your beard, Jasper.
I know.
Yeah. I have to look wiser with this role, you know. So when I take on a younger role, hopefully I'll shave. So.
The melting Arctic is the changing climate's alarm clock. It's been ringing for over a decade. But our leaders have chosen to hit the snooze button and go back to sleep. The good news is it's not too late for bold climate action.
This is a moment, right? So I'm Tara Buakamsi. I think I started at the end of 1999 Warren said to me, you need to be persistent. That's why I still around here after 1998 until today. It's amazing. I've been working within Southeast Asia office, different campaign issue, and then become country director for Greenpeace in Thailand. I've been working with every single one of you here. Thanks for that.
Come to the question about should Southeast Asia go nuclear? The answer is clearly we should not go into that way. There is a better way to go.
Would you have all imagined decades ago you'll be all reunited today on a Zoom call like this and during a pandemic? And I think it's really great to see all of you and to have this conversation with you and hear a little bit of our history from your perspective. So what was the context then that Greenpeace felt it needed to form itself in Southeast Asia? How did it all start?
Okay, Athena can maybe remember.
Age before
she's younger than me, so Greenpeace was interested in Asia prior to any of the other Asian offices being set up. There was Greenpeace Japan. What motivated Greenpeace to establish that presence was the anti-whaling campaign. I know before Athena and I were recruited by Greenpeace, there was an Asia project. Clearly, they were thinking about setting up official presence in Asia, but didn't know where and how. So toxics, especially the dumping of hazardous waste from industrialized to the global south countries in the early to late 90s, right? And that took Greenpeace to India, to Indonesia, to Thailand, to Philippines, because they were following the shipments of hazardous waste. I don't know about you guys, but when Greenpeace first came to the picture in the region, there was a bit of skepticism on the part of local groups, like, oh, this is Big Green coming in. Greenpeace organized skill shares with local activists, like trainings for volunteers, and that's how we built trust with the organization and also started building alliances. Athena and myself were, in a way, because there was no office, that time we were floating, so we were given a very big brief. We were supposed to be Asian campaigners, expected to cover the entire region. But they anticipated that the future of the movement, of the environmental movement, or the future of the planet lies in what happens in Asia. And that's how Gypsy was formally established. Year 2000, right after the ship tour, we had a toxic pre-Asia tour, a defining moment for the establishment of the office.
And then Indonesia came many years later. So for Abby and Yaya, what is your onboarding story?
My first connection with Greenpeace was the 2004 ship tour. I think it was 2 months long. It was with the Rainbow Warrior 2. It was amazing how people already have expectations about Greenpeace. It was almost very easy to get journalists to join in, to cover and so on, because it was something new. It was Greenpeace. But then again, the editors are not all on board. I remembered when the ship came to Jakarta, the cameraman already agreed, one of the local TV stations, and the editor just said no. And I said, why? Come on. In the end, it came out. We don't want to be influenced by you guys.
Greenpeace is here today on the south coast of Kalimantan in Indonesia. We're at the mouth of the Lamandau River near the infamous logging town of Pangkalan Bun. We're just sitting to the west of the Tanjung Puting National Park, and we're witnessing illegal timber being loaded onto several freighters bound probably for export markets.
When we did the Aceh relief tour after the tsunami, We went to this small remote area and this village head said, "Oh, Greenpeace, Wales." The brand was recognized. As for the government, there's more skepticism between 2005 or even earlier. It was some really spectacular actions, I should say. The target wasn't happy, obviously. The police then also learned how to deal with Greenpeace. When they arrest Greenpeace, then the coverage becomes even more.
Yeah. How did you come on board?
It was actually an incidental. I met Amy. At that time, she was the Gypsy director. She recruited me to start the climate and energy campaign in Indonesia. And she said, you will work with Fawn. I know Fawn before from the toxic campaign. At that time, Indonesia faces two big problems, coal and nuclear. We need to choose because we cannot really fight both. Strategically, we think that the nuclear, because currently Indonesia has no nuclear power plant. So we think it's our priority to put down the nuclear plant forever.
Yaya, you led an action on the ground, a demonstration.
Japara.
Yeah, in Japara. And we took that picture of that community action, and that inspired them to declare a fatwa on nuclear energy, which later on convinced the government, okay, let's not do this now.
And Mark, if I'm not mistaken, you were sent ahead in Indonesia, right, to sort of establish the office and set it up.
There was that Rainbow Warrior tour. We're planning to visit Indonesia. That was interesting, operating a big ship tour without an actual office. Even way before that, if I'm not mistaken, the first time that an actual ship visited the Philippines was sometime in the early 90s. And that was a Toxics tour. And we were supposed to hang a banner and block a shipment of electronic waste that was coming from Australia. Vaughn, I remember you were legislative staff at that point and you helped us out.
Yeah, it's actually a funny story. We didn't know it was e-waste, right? The report was that this was a shipment of lead waste. The shipment landed in the port and I was working for a senator and we used that connection then to enter the port and then get the container open, right, with media in tow. Managed to unlock the container. It was all computer electronic equipment. So we were shocked, of course, because we were not prepared. Consulted folks in Greenpeace, Germany, and they said, but electronic waste contained lead, contained mercury. That was how the e-waste campaign started.
If you would search those pictures, the really first blockade that happened was that year. We got ship crew onto the anchor chain. They prevented the ship from leaving the anchorage to go to the port. As early as that, we were already doing some pretty hardcore stuff. Nowadays, I think if we didn't have a sense of accuracy on information, we wouldn't do anything in general. But that time it was like, all right, let's just do it. And the optimism of taking action is much better than the pessimism of waiting for something perfect to happen. And so that was a really good lesson that really started the ball rolling on what would be possible.
How did governments react to Greenpeace campaigning intervention? And for the groups that we worked with, how did they perceive our activist orientation and our nonviolent direct actions?
On how Greenpeace has worked very well with communities, I think Athena and Tara can speak to the coal campaign and even Jasper, how we've been doing that. I think that's one of our models for how we should be operating in Asia or in new regions. It was unique for Greenpeace because Greenpeace is used to basically doing it alone, right? When we started working in this region, we were very mindful about the need to work with local communities, amplify their voices, and support local campaigns.
Over the years, what we've learned really well is how to partner from the beginning with the grassroots campaigns. My favorite campaign in my 15 years at Greenpeace is the Prachuap Campaign. And it's a women-led campaign. And then Greenpeace came in and turbocharged the campaign, all the women leaders there. I have never seen such respect for Greenpeace, whether you're Asian or European American. And I think that's because we were never tone deaf in our campaigning, and we would always put the development and economic interest of the communities affected by the project front and center.
And nonviolent direct action is new. Also, we introduced that. Not that we were the only ones. There were local NVDAs also before, but the way Greenpeace did the actions, creating this, platforms for conversation and debate to turn a spotlight on an issue, that was unique. Authorities didn't know how to respond because they were used to passionate demonstrations, which often ended up in violence or vandalism. This is the U.S. Embassy action. So they were not used to activists sitting like that on the ground to deliver a message and deliver it in a way that's very difficult to ignore. This was a container of toxic waste that we collected in the former U.S. bases in Clark. We delivered it back to the U.S. Embassy because as part of their legacy after they left the bases, they left behind these toxics all over the place.
Someone get the overpack bottom on that's right.
U.S. government has tried to evade its responsibility. We think this is unacceptable from the perspective of environmental justice and from the perspective of human rights. Basic principle is the polluter should pay. The United States in this case has to own up to its responsibility.
All these things actually demonstrate, what was unique to Greenpeace. The nonviolent direct action is definitely part of the DNA. The fact that we are able to confront big businesses, corporations, governments also speaks to our value of independence, which also sets us apart from other environmental organizations out there.
Yeah. Can you talk about the Chiribon? It was intended to be a simple and very straightforward community visit, which then snowballed into something bigger than it should have been.
The Chiribon was very interesting because, like Von said, we work closely with the community there and also the local NGOs as well. At that time, we were having a skill share from the region, so it's not only the Indonesian, there are also people from other countries as well. The police know and they came to the village, they raided us basically. The community said, we will fight, trying to fight back the police. We try to calm down the community because we don't want them to get hurt. Working with the community in ASEAN context is very crucial. Greenpeace strength gets from the community. In most of the action in Indonesia, I think a lot of people have been deported from from the country, but I think there's no problem for them to go back. So
I remember some of our most spectacular engaging actions took place in Indonesia, in particular with the forest campaign. The haze that's now like a regular thing, given us lots of opportunities to take action. That's the kind of power associated with this type of action, especially involving communities.
I'd like to ask Abby if she has fond memories about Hapsoro, one of our very first staff.
Yes, thank you. Hapsoro, as I remember, is a very committed activist. Before joining Greenpeace, he's already very much involved in the forest campaign. I felt very lucky to be the first ones to establish the office together with him in Indonesia. It was very easygoing. I think it's a very big loss. Greenpeace is also very lucky to have him as the first forest campaign.
So we've heard, how governments react. How would you compare it today? Would you say that it has changed? Is Gypsy dealing with a lot more?
I see not really a big difference when we started, because there has been a mixed reaction when it comes to Greenpeace present in Thailand. I think we've been sort of making some impact when it comes to working with local community, fighting against projects that affecting their livelihood.
I'd say things have changed. If I were to compare those sort of periods when we were starting, especially the pioneering stages, it was a bit more like finding the spot where we can make a relevance. We can also gain trust of people. So last year or 2 years ago, we had a rock band on top of a silo in Indonesia.
We are confronting one of the most powerful, biggest traders of palm oil in the world, because this is complicit to the massive deforestation happening all over the world and happening here in Indonesia.
As I would say that the everyday sort of stays as a key part, and that's why we really want to maintain that part of the identity as well. The amount of effort that we put in risk assessments, analysis is something that we don't want to lose. The other one that I felt we were a bit stronger and we're trying to develop better now the last few years is also the political work, navigating the policy sphere. And we are, of course, relevant in different levels across the region in different country offices.
Democratic space in Thailand had been shrinking quite a lot. That's also affecting how we operate here. Greenpeace also has to look at that if we want to make a difference, how we reclaim democratic space to be able for us to actually gain some progress in our campaign.
In the shrinking democratic space, I think it's very important to also show that Greenpeace is also part of the democratic movement. This is what we are always doing. We push the boundaries. We don't want to be trapped in the limitation of law that are basically unfair and limits our freedom of expression. And learning from Indonesian experience, for example, when I was country representative, we were attacked and was tried to get rid of from the countries. Because we work closely with other social justice network, social movement in Indonesia, they supported us. They even give their voice and help us in lobbying the government, etc., etc. Being part of the larger movement in this kind of situation is very important.
Especially now, while democratic space is being challenged, all the more that a consolidated front is very important. It's important for Greenpeace to be a part of that, and in some instances actually lead that and stick its neck out and be able to take the risks that required. We know that crises will define the future, and the ability to be able to navigate, manage, and steer crisis towards what we need to achieve in terms of our campaigns is going to be absolutely critical. And organizations are pulling back because of fear of being shut down or having legal cases. There's really interesting times, and I think Greenpeace Southeast Asia has a very big role to play in all of this.
I share the sentiments of fear and anxiety amongst us.
Terima kasih kepada supporter dan donor yang telah mendukung kami di dalam situasi yang sulit ini.
In this new context with the COVID-19 pandemic and all the other social justice issues, what do you think Southeast Asia and by a matter of extension the world needs most right now?
Now it's a big question. Can we get the elders to say something first?
Definitely, there's still a space for Greenpeace, right? It's really a matter of finding how we can make the most difference. And we are in the business of changing people's hearts and minds in the service of systemic change. Our value of independence is unique, So we lend our voice, we lend our power to communities and other organizations who may not have that kind of capacity or even independence. And that needs to continue, right? And we need to be working more with movements. We need to be working more with communities and help push their campaigns. We cannot operate independently anymore. NBDA, we operate in a very challenging environment where everybody else does that. But if we do it with people, we do it with movements, then it has that additional value.
What does green mean? It makes me think of the environment and the world we now live in.
Of diverse farmlands now damaged by harmful chemicals.
Where our seas, once teeming with marine life, are now full of plastic.
The air is now polluted by dirty carbon produced by corporate powers,
causing global warming, fueling climate change, superstorms, and devastating droughts, impacting on our basic rights to a safe environment.
Who can stop this?
Me.
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 You.
We.
Green is good.
Join the movement
for a green and peaceful future.
What Greenpeace has historically been known for and has been really good at is to be the voice of radical and to be the force that pushes the envelope. As somebody said, Greenpeace should keep making radical the mainstream rather than take a step back and just do things that are easily replicable. No, Greenpeace is known for fighting the big fight and taking big risks.
The reach in the region is now a bit farther than when you all started, operating now in 4 countries with over 200 staff. Somewhat a surprise that it would get this big. Where do you see Gypsy in 20 years more?
Maybe Greenpeace should be out of business in 20 years. Right? Because you have been so effective that your presence is not
We've won everything, yeah.
necessary. It's a good learning experience. I wouldn't change anything in the last 20 years. It's good to reflect. Moving forward, I think we just need to keep experimenting, finding new ideas that would capture the public imagination. That's the challenge. If you become so conventional, you're losing it. So in the next 20 years, I hope Greenpeace, Southeast Asia, or Greenpeace for that matter, no longer exists because we have won.
There's a big reason that we're all still here, or Greenpeace is still here, Southeast Asia, and still making a big difference. And that's really because of all of you who made this possible. Greenpeace Southeast Asia staff, volunteers, supporters, and donors. I want to ask one advice from you. What would you like to share to our present and future Greenpeace community?
We should never underestimate our power to make change. We just need to be persistent, make sure that we know what sort of change we would like to achieve. Just keep on believing in yourself. Don't let others tell you that you can't do something.
Keep pushing the boundaries, take risks, make change.
Keep fighting the big fight, as Isaiah said. Continue pushing the envelope and pushing the boundaries. Always remember to be kind. I think kindness and empathy is absolutely needed in this world. And Greenpeace people are some of the kindest people in the world because they dedicate, most of them, their whole life till their death to Greenpeace.
We live in a time that I would consider to be a defining moment for this generation. Learn from pandemic, climate emergency. It's imperative that we move from here with a more positive outlook. That is, the challenge for our supporters to continue supporting our activism, our activists, our actions, our work in order to make that alternative future a reality.
So I'd like to thank the pioneers. You make me feel young again. For me, it's really inspiring to hear from you guys again and share experiences. And also just to know, we have a baby now. We have Malaysia. So that's sort of like first steps, baby steps as well.
Thank you very much, everyone. Really something. And Ateng, I know it has been such a stretch to go beyond your midnight. So thank you very much for
Absolutely worth it, yes. Great reunion for everybody. So thank you for pulling it together.
All right.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care, everyone.
I slept all night on a big white ship. Seagulls were dancing all around. I woke up with a sunrise on the sea. Such a priceless gift to me. The salty breeze and the waves, the slow pace, the salty breeze and the waves. I'm out of our place. Yesterday we followed the road of the moon. We drove all day towards the coast. It remembered me the beauty of this life. Such a feeling to be alive. The salty breeze in my lungs. And back to where I'm from. The salty breeze in my